What is going on? It is the Americans all for recap. Now we have a lot of news to get to this week.
It's a fantastic financial statement. And let's do that over. He's coughing in the middle of my answer.
Yeah, okay.
I don't like that, you know?
Your chief of staff.
If you're going to cough, please leave the room.
We have seen more and more aggression by the Iranians in the past week. Mike Pompeo has consistently blamed the Iranians for the tanker attacks. A lot of people are painting this as propaganda, and it honestly seems like we have gone full Alex Jones on this issue. A lot of people are saying that Trump wants to go to war. I don't see any reason as to why he would want war. It wouldn't definitely help him politically. The vast majority of people in America do not want war with Iran. Even some Democrats are saying that it was Iran who attacked the tanker.
There's no question that Iran is behind the attacks. I think the evidence is very strong and compelling. In fact, I think this was a Class A screw-up by Iran to insert a mine on the ship. It didn't detonate. They had to go back and retrieve it. I can imagine there are some Iranian heads rolling for that botched operation.
Speaking of Trump, his campaign has now completely removed all ties to some pollsters after they released bad polls about him this week that didn't struck his peacocks. Trump dismissed a lot of these polls, and in all honesty, has a lot of reasons too. You remember in the 2016 election that a lot of the polls, especially the state polls, were not accurate at all. The national poll, on the other hand, was accurate. New York State also introduces a state bill to decriminalize sex work. The statewide bill is backed by a coalition of more than 30 organizations, including the LGBT, racial justice, and immigration rights. Trump has announced that he will deport millions of immigrants. As you can imagine, everyone has lost their minds, Cortez especially.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border. And that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps. And if that doesn't bother you, I want to talk to the people that are concerned enough with humanity to say that we should not, that never again means something. And that the fact that concentration camps are now an institutionalized practice in the home of the free is extraordinarily disturbing.
Throughout the week, she continued to double down on this notion again and again. She has honestly died more times on this issue than Kenny on South Park.
First of all, I'm absolutely comfortable using that term because it is rooted in an academic definition. Oftentimes when people, when the term concentration camp is evoked, what people think of are extermination camps. They think of Auschwitz. And I think what we need to realize is that it takes a process, a slow, gradual process of increasingly dehumanizing steps.
I signed that, and behind me I had home builders and farmers mostly, and ranchers. And many of them never cried in their life, including when they were born, and they were crying. Yeah, it's true.
On Wednesday, we do have some good news for a Trump campaign. He has raised about $25 million in the past week. Now, there's no reason to get too excited, okay? Beto and Bernie had similar explosive starts, but their campaign is slowly decaying, so it could be likely that Trump has that possibility. He also kicked off his 2020 campaign in Florida, going after Hollywood, saying that it became, too polarized. They attacked CNN for attacking Kavanaugh, just multiple things.
They tried to ruin the family of now Justice Kavanaugh. They tried to ruin his career. They tried to ruin his life. They even wanted to impeach him on fraudulent charges. Those charges were a fraud. He did nothing wrong, all in pursuit of political domination and control. Just imagine what this angry left-wing mob would do if they were in charge of this country.
Now Trump leads in saying that the far left has gone way too extreme at this point, and saying that it will eventually destroy people's lives. He then went on to attack Democrats for supporting the wall a decade ago, and now all of a sudden they don't support it. He also went on to saying that we pretty much need the wall to protect against the caravan, how Democrats supported illegal immigrants, yet don't support the homeless.
And we are building the wall. We're going to have over 400 miles of wall built by the end of next year. It's moving rapidly, moving very rapidly. And we couldn't get the wall approved by the Democrats, even though they voted for it 4 years ago and 6 years ago and didn't get built. But they voted for it. All of a sudden, Trump is president. We don't want a wall. Can you imagine those caravans without having the barriers and walls that we've already put up and that are up, this country would be a mess like you wouldn't believe. So the wall is moving along. It's moving along rapidly. It's beautiful. I changed the design. It's stronger, bigger, better, and cheaper.
It isn't to say that it's all glorious, okay? Trump is still fixated on Hillary, like some sort of ex-boyfriend that just won't let go. We also have this video this week showing just how bad political animosity is in this country. A heartbreaking video captured the sound of a father in tears as he pleaded for the life of his unborn child.
Help her to listen.
No, don't do it.
Oh my gosh. It's not right. It isn't right.
I'm such a good dad.
I know, honey.
I took care of her kids too, and the guy that she's let back in her life doesn't even take care of his own kids.
No matter what happens, Tyler, you've done the right thing, man.
A number of those who support abortion rights have commented under the video to mock it. One of the commenters said, "I can't stop laughing. I keep watching this video over and over again, crying because I'm laughing so hard." Another person said that, "Sir, this is a fetus you're talking about. You're throwing a tantrum over it." We also have Cory Booker, Spartacus, out this week, pretty much talking about racial injustice and reparations, and pretty much if you try and respond or rebuke some of the things that he's saying, that you're somehow a racist.
I live in a black and brown inner city community below the poverty line. I've lived and worked in communities like this all my adult life. And yesterday, hundreds of yards from where I live, there were 7 black men shot. And this is an everyday occurrence in America. And I feel a sense of anger where we are in the United States of America, where we have not had direct conversations about a lot of the root causes of the inequities and the pain and the hurt manifested in economic disparities, manifested in health disparities, manifested in a criminal justice system that is indeed a form of new Jim Crow. Many of the bedrock policies, in fact, that ushered generations of Americans into the middle class were designed to exclude African Americans from the GI Bill to Social Security, intentionally designed to exclude blacks, as was school segregation, redlining, neighborhoods like the one in which I live, which were by design walled off and disinvested in. This idea that it's just about writing a check from one American to another falls far short of the importance of this conversation and what I believe we will truly talk about. I say that I am brokenhearted and angry right now. Decades of living in a community where you see how deeply unfair this nation is still to so many people who struggle, who work hard, who do everything right but still find themselves disproportionately with lead in their water, Superfunds in their neighborhood, schools that don't serve their genius, healthcare disparities that still affect their body and their well-being.
I guess that Obama and Coleman Hughes must be racist too for not supporting these issues.
Do that as president.
Senator Obama, your position on reparations?
I think the reparations we need right here in South Carolina is investment, for example, in our schools. That's the kind of reparations that are really going to make a difference in America right now.
Reports homicide as the #1 cause of death for young black men. I'm not saying that acknowledging history doesn't matter. It does. I'm saying there's a difference between acknowledging history and allowing history to distract us from the problems we face today. Black people don't need another apology. We need safer neighborhoods and better schools. We need a less punitive criminal justice system. We need affordable health care. And none of these things can be achieved through reparations for slavery. If we were to pay reparations today, we would only divide the country further, making it harder to build the political coalitions required to solve the problems facing black people today. We would insult many black Americans by putting a price on the suffering of their ancestors. And we would turn the relationship between black Americans and white Americans from a coalition into a transaction. What we should do is pay reparations to black Americans who actually grew up under Jim Crow and were directly harmed by second-class citizenship, people like my grandparents. But paying reparations to all descendants of slaves is a mistake. Take me, for example. I was born 3 decades after the end of Jim Crow into a privileged household in the suburbs. I attend an Ivy League school. Yet I'm also descended from slaves who worked on Thomas Jefferson's Monticello plantation. So reparations for slavery would allocate federal resources to me, but not to an American with the wrong ancestry, even if that person is living paycheck to paycheck and working multiple jobs to support a family. Reparations, by definition, are only given to victims. So the moment you give me reparations, you've made me into a victim without my consent. Not just that, you've made 1/3 of Black Americans who poll against reparations into victims without their consent. And Black Americans have fought too long for the right to define themselves, to be spoken for in such a condescending manner. The question is not what America owes me by virtue of my ancestry. The question is what all Americans owe each other by virtue of being citizens of the same nation. And the obligation of citizenship is not transactional. It's not contingent on ancestry. It never expires, and it can't be paid off. For all these reasons, Bill H.R. 40 is a moral and political mistake. Thank you.
Don't say nothing to me about Tom Brady. Tom Brady just ended racism by himself. You want to talk about making America great? Tom Brady, by himself, just made America...
On Thursday, Iran shot down a U.S. drone earlier that day, escalating tensions. Iran has argued that the drone violates their airspace, while critics are using it as justification to show that Iran is turning more and more aggressive. We also have some bad news for the Biden campaign. He's receiving more and more backlash for saying that he had to support segregationists in the past to work with them. Biden argues that even though he disagreed with them, that you need to do these things to get things done in politics. This is seen as complete heresy by the far left, and he's receiving so much flack over it this past week.
You don't have to agree. You don't have to like the people in terms of their views, but you just simply make the case and you beat them. You beat them without changing the system. They know better.
Are you going to apologize like Cory Booker
Apologize for what?
Cory Booker's called for it.
Cory should apologize. He knows better. There's not a racist bone in my body. I've been involved in civil rights my whole career. Period.
I've fallen, and I can't get up.
On Friday, the president considered striking Iranian resources.
They came and they said, sir, we're ready to go. We'd like a decision. I said, I want to know something before you go. How many people will be killed? In this case, Iranians. Back said, sir, approximately 150. And I thought about it for a second, and I said, you know what? They shot down an unmanned drone, plane, whatever you want to call it, and here we are sitting with 150 dead people that would have taken place probably within a half an hour after I said go ahead. Yeah. And I didn't like it. I didn't think it was proportionate.
Trump has shifted on this issue every which way, saying that Iran made a mistake very angrily, to eventually saying that Iran made a mistake and it could have just been an honest mistake. And now he's suggesting that Iran could not be attacked. So it's safe to say that the president is clearly clueless on this issue right now. He has no clue what he's going to do about Iran. A court ruled that President Trump can cut about $60 million in taxpayer funding to Planned Parenthood. If you like the video, please be sure to subscribe. It really does help us out. I give weekly recaps of the news every single week. Well, that's all the news for this week. I'm Stephen Hall, and this is the Americans All For Recap.